Hello, we're here today to talk a bit about Anywhere Workspace and changing dynamics in the workforce. You're in the middle of this in Europe in your role. Tell us a little bit, what are you seeing in the field? What are customers focusing on these days?
Yeah, it's really interesting actually. So for me, I've been a worker that kind of works from lots of different places over the last 16, 17 years. And traditionally, like many geographies, that's not necessarily been the normal, right? The normal has been go into an office, you work within certain hours, you leave the office, you go home. Obviously, with everything that's happened around the world with the pandemic, that's thrown everything in the air. And I think we've seen about 10 to 15 years transformation in 18 months, right? Suddenly going to a physical place is no longer an option. People had to quickly, react to being able to access systems and services from locations they weren't used to. And so now, coming off the back of everything that's happened, we're starting obviously to see a lot more trying to plan for that being the new normal. So how do we get access to the same services? How do we still do our job? And also seeing a lot of how do we deliver outcomes, which has been a big thing for me, outcome driven as opposed to specific, just 1, 2, 3 tasks being the objective of a role. And so, yeah, we're seeing a lot of transformation, as I say, 10 to 15 years in such a short space of time. So it's definitely keeping us busy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're seeing the same really all around the world, not just in EMEA. And one of the observations that I had with customers and what we're seeing in the marketplace, there's so much to do, these very rapid transformation, as you say, and the technology is very rich. There's all these different things that you can do in end user computing to adopt the technology. So we sometimes see customers struggle to think about what is that roadmap of adoption? How should I phase this out? How can I realize value quickly, get users onto the platform very rapidly, drive some business value out of this, and maybe then think about an expansion of this in a step-by-step fashion, or optimizing the footprint that they have and the operations that they have over time. So building that solution roadmap, if you will, is not something that technically minded IT leaders think naturally about, but it's nevertheless really, really important for them to do.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, when looking at a roadmap and talking to our customers, it normally starts with a preconception that a roadmap is a set in stone, 3-year, 4-year cycle that we need to dot every I and cross every T. And that's completely contrary to what we talk about in a roadmap, right? It should be flexible. It should have a destination that is an ideal, but it's not fixed, right? You've got a journey to go on, and then you can break that journey down into logical steps, right? So once you pass each step, there's a phase where you would reevaluate. Are we still heading in the right direction? Is this the best route to go down, or should we do something slightly different? Because there's no pause button, right? You're transforming a lot of things by looking at that roadmap, by trying to provide those extra benefits to the business, and you need to do it while still running the business. It's always a difficult thing to do, especially if you're going to try and lock it in. 3 years set in stone, this is definitely the journey we're going on. So there's a lot of interesting conversations when we take that mindset to our customers around, think slightly differently. Yes, it's big, yes, it's programmatic, but it's just a sense of direction. It's not a, hard and fast, this is what we're going to do. And when we break it down, we often find the customers start to see easier ways and quicker ways of achieving the goals they're after.
Yeah, and you mentioned a really important topic, and that's that transformation of things that need to happen while customers still running things. One of the things that we've certainly observed all over the place is that sometimes leadership in organizations from a CIO level down make a strategic decision to implement some technology, and then in the trenches they have people that have been working perhaps with other technologies for many, many years that might be reluctant to change. It's a mental chasm for them to cross, if you will, and we are seeing that customers and organizations are really mindful about aligning stakeholders end to end tend to be a lot more successful in that transformation than those who perhaps believe that that happens naturally.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think stakeholder alignment is critical. But I think a lot of the times when people talk about stakeholder alignment, they just focus on the people who own the budget, the people who run the business. And actually, the stakeholders should also be the end users and the employees, right? And getting them involved early will help when you get to the employee adoption stage, for example. But ultimately, for me, I've been doing this for quite a while now. Tech is the easy bit, right? So if you think tech's complicated, wait till you get to people and process, right? And people, process, tech is kind of the way I look at it. And you talk about the people first, then work out the processes that go along to help the people do what they need to do, and the tech that underpins it all. And if you don't have those conversations with the people, and you don't start to think about how do we do stuff today, process-wise, what could it look like tomorrow, you'll really struggle. And I think ultimately you can only move as fast as your slowest part. So again, when you talk about the individuals that may have been doing something for the last 20 years and are reluctant to change, that's fine. It's understanding where the reluctance comes from and talking to them about where are the benefits they can have by going through that change. Where do they fit in the new world? How does it work? And we often find, when we have those types of conversations, so people, process, tech, get stakeholders aligned throughout the business, then we get a much clearer vision that helps us build that roadmap to success for the customer.
Yeah, I agree, Chris. And I think, we wanted to have in my notes, like we want to talk about design and integration, but that's, to your point, that almost happens naturally. That's kind of top of everybody's list. And when you have cloud hosted or SaaS applications, really more about the integration and the actual design and the build out. But one thing that we're also seeing, perhaps that customers are maybe not thinking enough about early on, or maybe internally there are other stakeholders that ask very pertinent questions when you implement new technology, specifically around security. That seems to be this big thing that drives a big discussion, super important, of course, with everything that's going on. Any thoughts on how customers might overcome those hurdles or accelerate that conversation?
Yeah, I think security alignment is key, right? And certain organizations will obviously have more regulatory compliance than others. But we've all got a duty of care to the individuals within our business and our own customers when we think about privacy and protection. However, I don't think we do enough to educate and help the end users empathize with why certain things are the way they are. And when we, again, take those stakeholders on that journey and explain to them, well, it works this way because, then you'll find the empathy comes in and the understanding for, okay, it might not be as fast as I want it, but I'm protected. So I'll take a 20% reduction in speed to ensure my safety and guarantee, that my data is protected. And when we do that, again, we seem to get those stakeholders that may have been challenging around the security piece a lot more on board. And we remove friction, right? Ultimately, that's what we're trying to do with, Anywhere Workspace, is try and reduce the number of friction points, because friction's not a good thing, right? But you need enough of it to make sure that it's not just easy for anyone to walk in and walk away with all your data. So it's that balancing act. But yeah, empathy for me is a key thing across all those stakeholders.
Yeah, no, I think that's certainly true and important. Another thing that we're seeing, that we're starting to think about, there's a whole topic around operating a new environment. Like customers have their set processes out there that know how to support their end users, especially when they come from a physical in the office world to a more remote world. That the support cases change, the problems change, the calls change, and having some prescription for those IT teams that, you have a date when you're going live, and we're talking about this here in a second, but things change on that date. And spending a little bit of time at a minimum to educate those folks that are supporting the end users, or maybe writing a process up or writing some common questions up or something as you approach the go live of the technology is really important to make sure things go smoothly. Otherwise, 10 minutes into it, the phone rings and an end user has a question or a problem that can't get work done, or they simply don't know enough about how this new world works yet. And then you're slowing everything down, right?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think one of the benefits, we have as a team is we interact with, hundreds of different customers. So we experience lots of different issues across different types of organizations and verticals. And so we always encourage our customers to work with us to help to create FAQs, run books, playbooks, and impart that experience. It says, well, we've come across a customer like you before. When they roll it out, they hit these particular issues. These are typically, the ways in which you can overcome those challenges and try and get ahead of the curve. I think, day two tends to focus a lot on run and operate, as you say, but the opportunity doesn't often get discussed around the fact that, well, you can look at orchestration automation tools or processes that allow you to shift left, right? So, I started out my career in IT support, right? And there are certain types of support tickets that you just don't want, right? And if we can automate and orchestrate them and shift them left, then that gives me the opportunity to work on the more important things or change things for the better. And that's a mind shift in itself, but that's again something that we can help our customers with and impart, that you don't have to go through this all the time. You can automate and orchestrate as much as possible, allows you to focus on much more valuable things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And thanks for sharing those thoughts. Lastly, before we wrap up today, Chris, share some ideas and some observations perhaps from your side on the actual user adoption, right? You're doing all this work, you're aligning your security, you're aligning your processes, you have the technology in place. There comes a day when you're telling your end users, here's now how to log on, here's now how you get to your applications, here's now how you take advantage of this. What does that transition look like? What does that go live, that user adoption look like?
Yeah, so again, it depends on the organizations that we're working with. Some of them just pick it up and fly, right? And if they're born in the cloud, mobile type users, then they tend to fall into that bracket. It's when you're changing, lots of things and the interfaces haven't been looked at for 20 years that you hit some of the challenges. However, consumerization of IT has really helped. A lot more people are more tech savvy, and they're used to a lot of the things we're bringing into the corporate world at home. And so actually, we don't hit as many of those employee adoption issues that you'd expect, but that's only because we're doing the stakeholder management in the right way. We're involving them early. We're getting them involved in the roadmap. They feel like they were part of the design and the testing and the proving. And then tips and tricks like getting champions in different departments, that can help other users in their own department. We have some customers where we've helped create internal marketing videos, for example, that get people ready for what's coming, and just a little cartoon video that shows them, Monday it's going to look like this compared to what it looked like on Friday. This is where you go to get help. And then within our own tool sets as well, we have, automation, and we've got tools within there that, again, virtual assistants that can help with the FAQs. So lots of different ways you can do it, but it all comes down to, the planning, and it starts with understanding that even in, more so, I guess, in the SaaS world, you're only going to get the value realized once it's adopted and consumed, right? You can design it and build it, and it can be the best thing in the world, but if no one's using it, there's no value, right? You've just spent money, and it looks great, but no value has been achieved. When those users are utilizing the systems, that's when that value really gets unlocked.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris, I actually don't have anything more to add to this. Thanks for spending time today to chat. I hope you have a great rest of the conference here, and we'll speak soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Florian. Thank you.